Welcome back to The Explainer. So, you know how every month we get hit with an absolute avalanche of dense, heavy reports? Well, today we're slicing right through all that noise. We're distilling a whole month's worth of current affairs into the absolute core facts you actually need to lock down for your competitive exams. Let's get into it.
All right, quick look at the agenda today. Number 1, we're covering India's economic upgrade. Number 2, empowering women in STEM. And number 3, a rapid-fire look at borders and global trade.
Starting right off with Section 1, India's economic upgrade, specifically redefining the base year.
So, why exactly do we need to change the GDP base year? It sounds incredibly technical, right? But honestly, it just comes down to capturing the actual reality of our post-pandemic world. You know, economies evolve, new industries blow up, and old ones fade out. If we don't update our baseline, we're literally working with outdated assumptions that just do not reflect what's happening on the ground today. Because of that, we are officially retiring the old base year of 2011 to 2012 and upgrading to 2022 to 2023. Think of it like this. It's basically like upgrading our economic camera lens from a super grainy standard definition to Ultra HD. This modernized framework lets us see today's economic activity with a level of clarity that simply wasn't possible before. Now, a massive highlight of this upgrade is the new double deflation method. This is a real game changer for economic tracking. By pairing this with modern supply and use tables, analysts are now stripping out inflation from both the inputs a business buys and the outputs they sell. The result? Far greater accuracy in measuring the actual real value added to the economy, especially in huge sectors like manufacturing and agriculture. And this perfectly illustrates what that HD lens actually captures now. Under the old 2011 data, huge chunks of our modern labor market were basically invisible. Now, our GDP framework finally counts the massive contributions of gig economy workers, platform-based employment, domestic workers, and the whole digital economy. Yep, that means all those late-night food deliveries and app-based cab rides are finally on the official books. Okay, so here's the crucial takeaway. Under this new, much more accurate system, the real GDP growth for the 2025 to 2026 financial year was actually revised upward to 7.6%. It really just proves that when you measure the modern digital and platform sectors accurately, our real growth trajectory looks significantly stronger. But, and this is vital to note, there is another side to the coin. Nominal GDP was actually revised downward to 345.47 lakh crore rupees. Why does this matter for your exams? Well, because this downward shift is going to directly alter key macroeconomic indicators, specifically our fiscal deficit calculations and our national debt to GDP ratios. So definitely keep an eye on those ripple effects.
Moving right along to Section 2, Empowering Women in STEM, looking specifically at National Science Day 2026. As you probably know, National Science Day is celebrated every February 28th to honor the legendary physicist C.V. Raman. He discovered the Raman effect way back in 1928, which, incredibly, made him the very first Asian to win the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1930. But while the date definitely honors history, the focus this year was fiercely on the future. The official theme for 2026 was Women in Science, Catalyzing Viksit Bharat. I really want you to absorb this because it places women squarely at the center of India's development and innovation ecosystem. It's a clear acknowledgement that for the nation to reach its absolute peak potential, gender equity in science isn't just some nice-to-have idea. It is an essential catalyst for national progress. But looking at the data, we still have a very persistent bottleneck. The good news? Female participation in STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math, has surged. Our classrooms are getting much more balanced, which is awesome. However, the workforce representation, particularly when you look at top-tier laboratory leadership and major scientific careers, remains stubbornly low. So, to fix this exact institutional gap, the government is currently pushing 5 specific initiatives. If you were taking notes for your exams, definitely star these. WISE Kiran, the Women Scientist Scheme, the Curie Program, Vigyan Jyoti, and Gati. Every single one of these is specifically engineered to provide the support needed to bridge that huge gap between the university classroom and the executive laboratory. All right, bringing us to our final segment, Section 3, Borders and Global Trade. Let's do some geopolitics fast facts. 2,600 kilometers. This massive number represents the total length of the Durand Line. Established all the way back in 1893, it remains one of the single most significant borders in all of South Asia. Sticking strictly to the facts here, this line continues to be a major source of active geopolitical tension, primarily because the 1893 agreement remains completely unrecognized by the Afghan side. It's literally a textbook example of how century-old treaties can continue to fuel highly complex, modern-day border disputes between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Pivoting away from land borders and over to global partnerships, we have a crucial update regarding the European Union. India and the EU have officially locked in most favored nation status for trade and services, guaranteed for the next 5 years. Now, MFN is a core World Trade Organization principle of non-discrimination. By agreeing to this, India and the EU are ensuring a totally level playing field for service trade over the next half-decade. And honestly, that is a massive win for our increasingly digital and service-oriented economy. You see, these aren't just isolated facts to memorize and forget about tomorrow. From completely redefining our GDP to capture the digital age, to empowering women in top-tier labs, to securing level playing fields in Europe, these are the building blocks of a rapidly changing nation. So as you continue prepping for your exams, I want you to keep investigating these threads. As India updates its economic metrics and expands its global trade footprint, how will these modernizations reshape our geopolitical leverage in the decade to come? Really think critically about that one. Good luck studying, and I will catch you in the next explainer.